Minister travelled to London today. Top of the summit agenda, the worsening situation in Northern Ireland. As the cycle of sectarian violence continues, tonight's dispatch reports from inside the IRA stronghold. Here, the legitimate rule of law has been replaced by the paramilitary's brutal brand of justice. For the first time, dispatches reveals the true human suffering behind the kneecapping, the broken limbs, the expulsions that are the traditional punishment for those who step out of line, and why the police, it seems, are powerless to act. The young men who are crippled and maimed, and those who are exiled far from their homes, these are the real victims of the law of the ghetto.
Sean Dunlop's arms and legs were smashed by men wielding iron pipes. The men were from the IRA.
On arrival, he required splinting of the fractures, resuscitation in the form of intravenous fluids, and analgesics, pain-relieving injections.
The IRA saw Sean as an antisocial element. This man, Michael Williams, was under an IRA death threat until last November. They say he can now go back to Northern Ireland, but not yet to his home in Derry. His crime? He called the police when he heard his elderly next-door neighbours screaming. The IRA had said Michael Williams was an informer. Informers are shot. Danny Morris drove too far in cars he didn't own, but he didn't break his legs in a crash. The IRA laid him down and did the job with hammers. Then they told him to get out of town. Tommy Smith was a joyrider too. He still has the bullets in his legs to prove it. But now he lives in London, where he is lucky to have a girlfriend and a job. Were you joyriding a lot in Belfast?
Yeah, well, sure.
How much?
Every hour night, during the day, most times during the day.
Did you steal a lot of cars?
Yes.
Where'd you get them?
Town centre, outside Belfast, East Belfast.
All these men have broken the law laid down by the IRA, a law whose lighter penalties leave you limping. Cars drive on the left and stop at the lights on the Falls Road, High Street to West Belfast's Catholic community. There is ordinary law at work here. But if you're an antisocial element, it's the IRA you watch out for, not the police. Just before Christmas, the IRA announced in Republican news that antisocial elements would only be shot as a last resort. In fact, punishment beatings have mushroomed at the same rate as general terrorism. For 20 years, the IRA has been part of life in West Belfast, and for 20 years it has had an interest in what others do there. Crime control is important to the IRA. It keeps the police at a distance.
What is the difference between the joyriders and the plank of wood? Joyriders are much thicker. What's the difference between a Rottweiler and a social worker? You can get your child back from a Rottweiler. What is the difference between the Falls Road and an anorak? An anorak only has one hood.
Joyriding, raking around at speed in stolen cars. It gets you out of the house and it costs nothing. The IRA has been trying to stamp it out for years. Because the people want them to, they say, and because an army of the streets needs order.
Your daughter was beaten by the Republican movement.
Yeah.
What happened?
They broke her nose, perforated her eardrum, took all her hair off, and she had to be hospitalised for it.
Took her hair off?
Yeah.
How did they do that?
They cut it all off with a large pair of scissors.
Had she been warned?
No.
Had you been warned?
No.
Had you been visited by the Republican movement?
Once or twice, to tell of her behaviour, which is what occurs with most of these kids.
What occurs with most of these kids?
That to curtail our children and keep them under control.
Who tells you that?
These people.
IRA?
Well, I suppose it would be the IRA.
How did you feel when you discovered your daughter had been beaten?
Very angry.
Did you complain to anyone about it?
No,
Do you think this should have happened to her?
no, she was underage.
She was underage.
Yeah.
What if she was overage? Do you think she should have been beaten?
No. No.
What have the neighbors said to you?
My neighbours haven't said anything.
Joyriders are hated in West Belfast. They don't want them shot dead. I mean, we've had cases of joyriders where the security forces have shot them dead in the most horrific of circumstances. Very questionable circumstances, to say the least. But having said that, is that when the joyriders are out day in, day out, where people are terrified and where the police are not taking action, the communities are asking for some action to be taken. And if paramilitaries move in and kneecap the particular people concerned, then the communities say, well, thank God that somebody has done this.
Joyriding kills. It mangles cars, it mangles legs, and it mangles minds. It is a nightmare for parents whose children might kill or be killed. When Phil McCullough had trouble with his son, he knew the IRA would deal with him.
I had physically punished them to probably the maximum that any parent could physically punish their own son.
How do you mean? Do you mean
physically beat him
with a stick, with a strap?
With my hands, you know. But however, that didn't work. And Philip did come to the attention of the Republican movement regarding his anti-social activities. As I've said, I dealt personally with Philip and my own personal capacity as a father. It didn't work, and I believe that I need probably more muscle to attempt to frighten Philip out of the position which he had adopted within the community. The Republican movement
provided that muscle?
Provided that muscle.
He was shot only once?
He shot once, yeah.
What went wrong with that shooting?
I don't think anything particularly went wrong with the shooting. But I suppose when someone puts a gun at another person's body and pulls a trigger, unforeseen things can happen. Philip, at present, is a cripple. He's crippled. He will be a cripple for the rest of his life. And the gangrene has travelled up his leg somewhat. And the powers that be within the city hospital have stated that his leg may have to come off.
Do you feel angry with the people who shot him?
I have no anger whatsoever for the people who shot Philip. I'm more angry at Philip allowing himself to be put in a position where people had to shoot him.
That's where it happened here.
How'd they do it?
I was just walking down. Next thing a car pulled up behind me. A masked man got out of a car. Just trailed me out, said they were from the professional IRA. Trailed me out, told me to lie down. Next thing I heard 2 shots. Didn't feel much, but I think I was in shock. And so it was a bit drowsy at the start, and then the animals came. People came out of the house to see it was okay.
Do you think the IRA has the right to shoot joyriders?
As I said, they don't have the right to do it. I mean, who gives anybody the right to shoot anybody?
How are you getting on with your father now?
All right, I talk to him all that day. Go out for a drink, occasional drink with him.
Thanks. You in hospital, sir? No?
No, I haven't been there.
You're getting a report back? No?
The last time I went over, it was a couple of months ago.
What are you going to buy me when you get the money?
Are you angry with him?
I'm not angry, no. It's no use holding grudges against anybody because you'd probably be fighting half away as Belfast.
Young Phil is right. Half of West Belfast supports Sinn Féin. And even those who don't say the police are slack on joyriding.
In many cases over the years, the police have done nothing about it. Hundreds of phone calls were made to the police and there was no response. You had soldiers out on patrol, but they weren't interested in joyriders. The police, senior police officer said to me at that time that they did not go to stolen cars because that meant they would not be booby-trapped. And I understand. I don't want any policeman to be injured. But to suggest that the joyriders are going to steal cars and plant bombs in them and then drive them at 70 miles an hour, that's just nonsense.
We asked the police to answer claims like that. They would only give us a statement. It said,
"The level of terrorist threat, the possibility of ambushes, and the terrorists' well-documented disregard for the safety of local people when mounting such attacks against police officers and soldiers all necessitate caution. This inevitably has resulted in the RUC not being able to respond on occasion, and in specific areas, as quickly as either they or the public would wish."
Shooting joyriders is only a part of the IRA's penal system. This is Ardoyne, a northern suburb of Belfast, where a constant sectarian threat keeps IRA support strong.
Working hard? Working hard?
One local councillor is Joe Austin. He is a Republican, a member of Sinn Féin, the political partner of the IRA. And the law says you may not hear him speak, so an actor talks here in his place.
The family have been evicted. Now, I don't have any details other than that message just came to the office, which would entail bailiffs, the RUC, probably a British Army support group supporting the RUC, so I don't know what the details of it are. I don't know whether it's a housing executive dwelling or whether it's a private dwelling. Just having the details. I'm going now to try and find out.
This letter I got from the housing executive would say that I'm not a priority case. My house is being repossessed. I have 4 children and I'm separated and on income support.
Well, the situation with the letter, it sounds very official. The situation is that while the executive have no statutory obligation to find you an alternative house,
Nearly every day, Joe Austin walks his ward, easing a whole range of social problems where he can, and reminding people that the movement, if they'll believe it, is their friend.
What happens in these areas, as you're well aware, is that they're almost like small villages. And when a young person is seen to be getting out of hand or stepping out of hand, it becomes a concern to the community. There are a number of approaches that are made by Sinn Féin to try and resolve that at an early stage. Sometimes it works, other times it doesn't.
But would they not sense the shadow of the gunman behind you?
I feel that a very difficult question to answer. I certainly don't.
You're right.
Joe says hello to one of 2 brothers who'd been misbehaving. With their parents, Joe had arranged for them to be placed in care through social services.
If they had have continued on a course of confrontation with the residents, they would have been punished.
Was Sinn Féin able to prescribe a precise period of time for them to be in care?
No, we negotiated with the father and mother, and we pointed out that we felt that it was a gamble, but it was a gamble worth taking, and it appears to have worked.
Was the IRA monitoring the behaviour of the children in any way at this time?
Well, I would imagine they would have been, yeah.
Sinn Féin can effectively sentence juveniles to state institutions by getting families to ask social services to put them in care for their own safety. Sinn Féin then tells the families when the IRA threat is lifted. Social services decline to explain their view of this system, but punishments, as Joe Austin explains in his office, are varied.
Well, it depends upon what offence they've allegedly committed. Some people are beaten, some are shot.
And the punishment is always related to the offence?
Yes, from understanding, yeah.
So tell me how a beating might proceed.
Well, I can only tell you how I imagine it might proceed is that someone who'd been involved in an incident, who's been pre-warned about his involvement, is picked up, arrested by the IRA, and is beaten.
With what?
Hurley sticks out, I imagine.
Iron bars, hammers?
I don't know, to be quite honest.
Would the intention usually be to break bones?
The intention would be to stop the person from doing what he's doing. The result of the beating, quite often, is limbs broken, yeah.
Ardoyne at night, where Sean Dunlop got the thrashing of his life.
A couple of fellas jumped out and grabbed me from behind, says, "Right, get down." Pulled my head down, made my face to the ground, spread eagled me, brought a beer crate round, and put my arm up in the beer crate. Got iron bars and bounced me. First of all, it bounced my arm, and then went down, bounced my leg, then up down the other arm, and then down the other leg. And I lay for about 20 minutes before anybody came. I was screaming, trying to get attention, get somebody to phone me an ambulance.
These x-rays are of his right lower leg and show the fracture of his lower tibia or shin bone, and also a fracture of the thin bone in the leg, the fibula. On the other X-ray, seen from the side, this was a compound injury. The skin was broken and this bony fragment was protruding through the skin. He also sustained injuries to his left knee and left ankle. He had fractures into both joints, which were fixed using bone screws. And these X-rays show the injury to his left forearm. He had quite a nasty fracture of the radius and ulna, the two bones in the forearm, in their upper third towards the elbow, this being the elbow joint.
Sean Dunlop's right arm and hand were also broken. Surgeons worked for 8 hours to set and pin his bones. He then required skin grafting to close his wounds. What would you say to the men who beat you like this?
I'll say none to them. I'll say none.
You don't think it's possible to reason with them?
It probably is possible to reason with them, you know, but I just want to get on with trying to live a life now, you know. If somebody's seen I deserve this, well, that's up to them, you know.
Why might they feel that you deserve this?
I'm not saying I did deserve it, but somebody might have thought I deserved it. You know what I mean? They might have made an error judgment somewhere.
What do you think your parents feel about this?
I'm sure they feel very hurt.
Is there anything that they can do, any complaint they can make to the people who did it, to an organisation behind it?
I don't know. I'm sure they could, but I don't think it should.
You don't think they should?
No. I'm not going to start getting involved in political arguments or anything else. It happened and it happened, and accept it.
But Sean's parents have complained to Joe Austin. Do you think that beating there was excessive?
I don't know, to be quite honest. I haven't seen the man. I've seen photographs of his injury. His injuries are certainly extremely severe.
But you would accept it in some circumstances. It may well have been justified to beat him.
I think you go back to the very central point. Does a community have the right to defend itself against people who they see and who are in fact preying on the vulnerability of the community? And in the absence of any alternative, I think that it's quite understandable.
But it's not just the IRA who've usurped policing in Northern Ireland. RUC and Army figures show that loyalist paramilitary gangs have been inflicting as many punishment beatings and shootings in Belfast. Overall, the rate is at least a couple a week. And what's new is the massive growth in the numbers of people from their own communities that the paramilitaries are forcing into exile, often under threat of death. Again, this involves both the IRA and loyalists.
Since the Anglo-Irish Agreement, in a way, the loyalists have become more militant all over, and they are looking at the success of the IRA in being able to control areas by intimidation and harassment. And that's why they are saying to themselves, well, if they can do it, we will do it. And therefore, they're kneecapping, they're using hatchets, they're actually expelling them for actually not joining. They come to them and ask them to join the UDA, etc. And if they say no, the next thing they know that they're being moved out. Something as simple as that. They're still not quite as sophisticated, but they're learning.
Eileen Bell knows. Almost every day, she and the Peace Bus bring mothers and children from Belfast's Protestant and Catholic ghettos to visit their men in prison. Eileen also spends a lot of time spiriting into exile those people the paramilitaries say must leave Northern Ireland. Expulsions now run at about 2 a week. People like Eileen are busy.
If you say you have to get out by midnight, then we would have to get them out by midnight, and that's it. Obviously, I'm not going to disclose how we do it, but there are mechanisms by which we all work together and get them out.
All work together, all separate organisations?
Different organisations. We're not a travel bureau for the IRAs down and outs, etc. But we do try our very best to look into the situation as quickly as possible and get them out as quickly as possible out of the immediate danger.
Social services, probation And a number of voluntary agencies, part-funded by government, all get drawn into paramilitary justice when they have to spirit to safety people under threat.
Everyone has different ways of doing it, but the one thing that we all do agree on is the fact that we have to get them out.
Who are the other organisations?
Well, again, they would need to speak for themselves.
None of the organisations we asked were prepared to take part openly in this programme. Northern Ireland's second city, Derry, is very different from Belfast. Most Catholics and Protestants live far apart from each other, divided by the River Foyle. Even so, the IRA watches closely over the Catholic community. The Church and the Republican movement, though, don't get on well together. It's the anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
Despite all that I've been through, there's tremendous goodness in this community, there's tremendous kindness in it, there's tremendous quality of family life, there's tremendous generosity. But we are constantly confronted again and again and again with the whole violence issue, and that is so central to our lives, and it's been there now for so long, and I suppose we're all very weary of it.
Weary but not quite able to reject the IRA.
Oh yes, I think most people do reject the IRA in this community.
Thousands of people with a range of political views march with Republicans to remember a long-standing grievance with the British Army. Alongside Sinn Féin's President Gerry Adams walks councillor and Republican veteran Martin McGuinness. McGuinness confronted the Bishop of Derry in the local media over what the IRA does to Catholics it calls informers. That row started with Michael Williams.
Well, Michael Williams heard something strange in the house next door. He came to the conclusion that the neighbour, a woman who was on her own in the house, was under attack or under pressure or under intimidation from somebody. He went across the street and phoned the police.
I went back to the house, and the wife was very annoyed.
Why?
Because I'd called the police.
Why did that annoy her?
She thinks that it was, I think she jumped to the conclusion that it was an IRA operation, which I hadn't at the time, And I don't know if you realize, but if you call the police and it's an IRA operation going down, you're cooking your books.
Would you have called the police if you had known it was the IRA in that house?
No, I don't think I would have done, to be quite honest with you. As you can see, the result of what I'm in here now. You put your life on the line. And when you've got a family, that's something you can't afford to do.
The police did come, and they arrested an IRA man. Then the IRA interrogated Michael Williams. A few days later, he heard that he was under a death threat, the usual punishment for informers.
When I was told this news, I went and told the wife, and actually broke down in tears about it. Because she realized what it was going to imply. And I just collected as much money as I had about me. And I just put on my coat and put the hood up, and I just walked out the house and just walked down the street and just walked away. The following Tuesday, the wife had gone across the road to see her friend, and 4 men with masks on came into the house and asked the sons, "Where's your father?" And they told him that if I'd have been there, I would have been executed. And like the two wee girls were there, Kelly and Teresa, they're only 9 and 10. I mean, they were petrified, they were. Especially the younger wee girl, because she suffers with asthma. And since then, she's had several bad attacks.
That was 2 years ago. Bishop Daly called on the IRA to lift its threat against a good neighbour. Martin McGuinness accused Bishop Daly of encouraging people to be police informers. Would you encourage people to be informers?
Well, people, I think, must make I mean, I can speak for myself. If I saw somebody out here setting up an ambush, I would either go to them themselves and say, clear off, or I would ring the police. I could not live with it on my conscience that somebody subsequently came up that street and was shot dead, and I could have prevented it.
How did the community react to Michael Williams calling the police that day?
Many of them would have done exactly the same thing. Either would have gone into the house themselves, or phoned for help, or phoned the police, or phoned somebody. Many of them there, better than anywhere else, would have understood his dilemma.
Are they frightened of the IRA?
Yes, who wouldn't be? I mean, I think anybody who isn't frightened of the IRA simply is not facing reality in this city.
Rory Finnis was shot shortly after 10 o'clock last night. He was wearing a mask and was barefooted. He'd been shot in the head. The provisionals claim Rory Finnis had passed on information to the police about safe houses, IRA operations and IRA members. They said for these reasons they killed him last night.
The fate of Rory Finnis lays heavily on the minds of Catholics who've become RUC informers. Men like Ray McNutt. He is from Derry. Now he's in exile somewhere in England. He phones home once a week.
All right.
A few weeks after Rory Finnis was murdered, Ray McNutt slashed his wrists. Word got round that he was upset, and soon afterwards he was approached by a local Sinn Féin councillor.
He just knew there was something bothering me. And he says, Raymond, I know there's something bothering you. And if you want, you can get it off your chest. So I told him what was bothering me. And after that, he sorted it out, went to a press conference. Big press conference.
How did you feel? Did you trust him to sort it out for you? Why did you trust him?
Because I knew I could trust him. Because he gave me his word, like, you know, and he's honest enough.
Was he a Sinn Féin councillor?
Mm-hmm.
So he was a member of the Republican movement?
Tell the truth, I know nothing about him. I don't want to know nothing about him, you know. But as far as I'm concerned, he was just a councillor. He was a councillor and he was there to help me when I needed it.
At a Sinn Féin press conference in this community centre, Ray McNutt told his story. It is the lifeline Sinn Féin throws to informers. If they blow their cover, they won't be shot. Over 100 informers have declared themselves for their own safety in recent years. Why are you in England now?
Because I was put out for a year.
By whom?
By the IRA.
Why?
That's the way I look at it. I mean, there has to be some kind of punishment. Even though it's only tagging the police, giving them a runabout, there still has to be some kind of punishment.
You accept their right to punish you for that?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because no matter what way you look at it, it's still classed as informing the police, giving the police information. Well, I mean, even though I didn't give them vital information, but that is still classed as giving them information. Still classed as working for the RUC.
What would happen if you didn't accept your punishment to leave the country?
I would probably be shot.
Dead?
Probably.
Did anyone tell you that?
Well, I was told I had 48 hours to get out, so they didn't say nothing after that.
Ray is in this mess because he was arrested by the RUC. He was accused of breaking into a storage shed. The police deny that they tried to recruit him as an informer, but his story matches dozens of other press conference accounts of the pressures they put on young delinquents.
A CID man came on the cell and he says, I can get all the charges dropped against you. I says, there's only one charge against me, and that's what you call the attempted burglary. They tried, says, but we can make it far difficult. We can make it worse for you. So I says, it kept going on anyway, and it brought £50 out of his pocket. And he says, if you work for us, I'll get your charges dropped, and you can walk out of here, and they're money off your pocket. So I was sitting in the cell, and he kept coming back and forth and bothering me about it. So I says, I had to work for him. I gave him money, let me out. Then he turned and says, we want you to watch certain people. I want you to watch friends and relatives.
Ray says he took several £100s from the police over 2.5 years, until they discovered that he was feeding them bogus information.
So they says to me, if you don't tell us what you know, or if you don't do what we want you to do, what we'll do, we'll sell letters or something, or tell your side that you are informing for us. So I says, and this time I was afraid, and I didn't know what way to turn. Like, I couldn't even tell my own people.
Have you heard complaints that young people are being pressurised by the police to act as informers for them?
Oh yes, many times over the years. It's a fairly regular phenomenon here, and I have complained publicly on a number of occasions about it. I've complained also privately to the police about it. I feel it's unfair. It puts unfair pressure on young people, and I feel that the police themselves know very well, you know, what the price that those kids will pay if the organisations like the IRA find it out.
The problem is not just in Derry, it's in Belfast as well.
Basically, they would take some young person in for questioning, and or maybe 2 or 3 young people, and they would remind them of things that they have done. Breaking entry into shops, various things like that, and we're going to charge you with these things, and you'll be put away in jail, all sorts of things. And then they would say, but if you give us information, they might offer them money. If you give us information, we'll not charge you with those things. That sort of thing happens frequently.
And it puts them in danger of being caught out by the IRA?
Of course it puts them in danger of being caught out, either being kneecapped or sent out of the country, or in some cases to be shot dead.
A number of groups within probation services, social services, voluntary agencies and so on will help almost effectively to administer the IRA's expulsion policy by providing services for people who are being put out of the country. Do you think that is a good and practical thing for them to be doing?
Well, I think that when young people are in trouble like that, there has to be organisations that will help them. Even though it's doing the work of the provost, but nevertheless, if people are under a very, very definite threat to their lives, then you do need organisations, whether it's probation service, social security, or other voluntary organisations. It is inevitable that you have these groups, and I personally would support those groups in helping young people to get out.
You would support them going to the IRA, even perhaps to negotiate the fine points of an expulsion?
Well, again, people will go to Sinn Féin. It's when you say IRA, as I said, I don't have their addresses or phone numbers. People will go to Sinn Féin if some of their family are under threat by the IRA, because that's the direct link. The Sinn Féin is the political wing of the IRA. I mean, that happens virtually every day. I mean, that's just a fact of life in Northern Ireland.
In all, more than 1,600 youths have been kneecapped by the IRA or worse. Hundreds more have been exiled to the mainland. Many to London, often sleeping rough or in hostels. Few are as lucky as Tommy Smith, who's got a job. How are you getting on in London?
Fine, great.
Are you still under order to stay away?
Well, according to my man, I was, yeah.
Tommy, like hundreds of others before him, is suing the Northern Ireland office for criminal injuries compensation for his kneecapping. But not quite everyone does what they're told. Today, Liam Cairns and David Madigan are in hiding in Northern Ireland. They meet their mothers in secret once every few weeks. Last August, the boys made national headlines for refusing to go into exile when the IRA ordered them out. 2 Sinn Féin workers had been beaten. David and Liam say the IRA knows they didn't do it, but the IRA remained adamant and the boys refused to go.
Our boys said from the beginning that they're not getting out of Northern Ireland, and they're not getting out of Northern Ireland, they're staying.
We'll have to catch the bus.
Right.
So we'll say, so happy birthday to you.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Right, son.
Happy birthday, son.
Right, son.
The provisional IRA has no right to put anybody out of their hometown. Nobody at all. It's a court of law. It's the right to do that, not the provisional IRA.
Knowing what you know now, would you do the same thing again?
Yes, definitely I would, yeah. Rather than the provisional IRA to get and harm them, yes, I would.
The expulsion order has been extended against them because of this protest, hasn't it, though?
Yeah, it has.
Haven't you then made things worse?
Well, no, like Mrs. Kearns and myself and David and Liam are willing to carry on for as long as necessary to the provisional IRA. Do lift the threat.
Last August, when the boys took sanctuary in Newry Cathedral, the world got a glimpse of how difficult standing up to the IRA can be.
It was an ordeal for them, and it became one for the Catholic Church. Publicly, Cardinal Daly always supported the men's use of the cathedral as sanctuary. Behind the scenes, coping with them proved problematic.
After 12 days, the boys felt it best leave the cathedral.
Well, it was no means pressure from the public and IRA. It was a pressure from the local clergy, individual priests, putting pressure on us all week.
Putting a lot of pressure on us.
He asked us to go and negotiate with Sinn Féin. So he says, a bullet, what's a bullet? It's only a bullet. I wouldn't worry about that.
He said what?
He says we'd only get kneecapped.
Bullet, he says. You'll only get kneecapped.
They were not put under any kind of pressure at any time. And full access was given to their families to come to them and visit them there at all times.
There were also claims that one priest told the men that they should go along with the IRA, they would be kneecapped, and he is alleged to have said, "What's a bullet?" What's your response to that?
That is despicable. That is totally untrue. I can only hope that the men were so confused after their confinement in the cathedral over all of 12 days and nights that they scarcely knew what they were saying.
The boys stick to the story. Since leaving the church, they've been moving secretly from safe house to safe house in Northern Ireland. They've stayed in over 20 homes so far.
You find some people strange and you find some people a bit odd, you know, but they're all working for the best, you know, you can't say nothing bad about them. Couldn't meet nicer people, you know.
Do you think, Liam, you're a burden on them?
No, not really. I'm glad to meet the people. I think they'd be glad to meet us. You know, but Davy says, like, you don't know what to say to them first when you go into the house, like, and shake your hand on that there and tell them your name, and they tell you their name. Just sit down and make you tea and that, you know.
Do you think you did the right thing?
I think yes. So why should we be left all alone for something we didn't do?
How are your nerves?
But they're all right. My nerves are all right. It's just when you go out, the nerves get the head of you, you know. Like if a car pulls up, you're sort of walking the far side. You don't know who it is, you know.
Do you think you did the right thing in standing against the order to leave?
Oh, aye. There's no way I was leaving Northern Ireland. Something I didn't do.
The IRA say they will consider lifting the threat against the boys in June. Sinn Féin say they are being politically manipulated. The families of several boys have said they will stand up to the IRA, but so far only Liam and David's families have remained steadfast.
Did you hear about the Land Rover that crashed into the tree? The IRA said they planted it.
Fuller will probably not have any future, and that is with the leg possibly having to come off. It means that his future is going to be very limited regarding employment for a start. But plenty of people have got on well in this world with one leg. You know.
Personally speaking, I would prefer to have been shot. Because I don't think it would have been maybe it would have been as painful, but I think it would have been over a lot quicker.
What would you say to parents who discover that their kids are joyriders? What advice would you give them?
Advice is to basically, if physical violence, family physical violence doesn't work, to dispatch them off to Manchester or Glasgow or Scotland or somewhere, get them out of Belfast. At least it possibly might save their legs.
There can only be a new order in the streets when the larger conflict in Northern Ireland is over. It won't be an easy job, to wean a whole generation of people and institutions from the habit of working with gun law. And no politician is even talking yet about how today's ghettos can be policed tomorrow.